A young white man, dropping out of school for the first time to enter the workforce, encountered an event that would change his life forever. Just as he was lifting a block of ice, a sudden car horn blared from behind, startling him. The block slipped from his hands and crashed loudly to the ground. But the rich young man in the car behind him showed no remorse. On the contrary, he hurled insult after insult at him. "Hurry up, you country bumpkin." This humiliation struck the boy deeply. It was his first step into society, and he already felt unbearably ashamed. As he watched the car speed away, his mind was in turmoil. But just then, something on the ground caught his eye, a newspaper. He picked it up, and from that moment, the gears of fate began to turn. On the front page was the legendary story of the Steel King, Andrew Carnegie. Their childhoods were remarkably similar. Both dropped out of school at the age of 12 to work, and both had endured the scorn of the rich and privileged. But Carnegie had gone on to become a world-renowned steel tycoon, with a fortune that at one point reached $3.1 billion. At a time when just $10 could feed an entire family, that was an astronomical sum. At that very moment, the boy, whose name was Red, made a silent vow. One day, he too would become a billionaire. But when he excitedly shared the stream with his father, all he received was a cold splash of reality. "Remember this, son," his father said. "You will never have money. You will only ever be one kind of person, someone from the bottom. That's what my father taught me, and I'm sorry, but it's all I can teach you." Yet, his father couldn't be entirely blamed. Poverty had long plagued their family of 5. On top of that, Red's mother was gravely ill and bedridden, and all the burdens of the household fell on his father's shoulders. Years of hardship had smothered even the thought of dreaming about a better future. But the more hopeless things seemed, the more determined Red became. A decision made is a step toward action. After much hesitation, Red finally decided to leave for the big city on his own, determined to escape the fate that life had handed him. After visiting his bedridden mother one last time, he left a farewell letter and walked away from the hometown he had lived in for 16 years. No one could have imagined that this decision would change his life forever, and one day lead him to become a world-famous oil tycoon. But Red had no money, not even enough to buy a train ticket. So he planned to sneak onto the train when the guards weren't looking, following behind a group of others. However, station staff quickly caught them. Just when things looked dire, a kind black man reached out and saved him. Thanks to this man, Red narrowly escaped disaster. Exhausted, Red collapsed in a corner and fell asleep. When he awoke, he saw the man who had helped him waving his arms in the air, talking to no one. "What are you doing?" Red asked. "I'm listing things I'm grateful for," the man replied. "My mother taught me this. Rain or shine, I name 10 things I'm thankful for." 10 things? You must be joking, Red said. He couldn't understand this mindset. After all, they were barely surviving. How could there be anything to be grateful for? But the man explained. Every person has countless things to be thankful for. Gratitude for the gift of life. Gratitude for the lessons time teaches us. Only with a grateful heart can the soul remain full of warmth and wonder. Before Red could fully grasp these words, the train arrived at the station. The man seized the moment and jumped off. When Red finally found the courage to jump, the man had already vanished. With no choice, Red followed a group of people to a nearby town. Coincidentally, a farm owner there was hiring workers. During an era of industrial hardship, jobs were scarce, so many people quickly showed up for the opportunity. But the farm owner only needed 6 workers. In a desperate effort just to get a meal, the skinny young man Red pushed his way to the front, eagerly introducing himself to the farm owner. But the man didn't even look at him. Red was simply too small and frail to catch his attention. Seeing that the 6 spots were about to be filled, Red quickly turned around and, out of sheer desperation, lifted a burly man off the ground to prove his strength. Though he didn't succeed, the ridiculous effort made the farm owner chuckle. Impressed by Red's enthusiasm, he finally agreed to give him a job. However, Red had clearly never worked with fence posts before. His post wobbled and fell, with just a gentle push. But what he lacked in skill, he made up for in sheer determination, something the others didn't have. While everyone else was taking a break, Red kept working, tirelessly reinforcing his post. Moved by his persistence, the boy from earlier, Gus, slowly approached and handed Red a cup of water, his face showing a hint of guilt. Through their conversation, Red learned that Gus came from a once wealthy farming family. But after the Great Depression, the bank had seized all of their land. Now, the entire family could only survive by taking on labor jobs. Gus's biggest dream was to become the largest landowner in Texas. and one day, buy back the bank that had taken everything from his family. Red, similarly, dreamed of becoming a billionaire. Their shared ambitions drew them closer, and they quickly found themselves with much to talk about. In that moment, as the summer breeze swept through the mountains and into the bustling town, it carried away the sweat of hard labor and gently watered the budding flower of a friendship that would last a lifetime. That fateful encounter made Red and Gus the closest of friends on each other's life journeys. But the path to chasing dreams is always filled with the unknown and unexpected hardship. Each evening, Red would watch the workers gather to play cards, his mind heavy with thought. He realized something sobering. Working a job like this would never help him achieve his dreams. He would end up like them, living a life of dull routine and wasted potential. He, too, would use the same resigned tone his father once used to pass on hopelessness to the next generation. Anxious and restless, Red approached the farm owner and asked him directly, "What's the secret to success?" The owner, clearly fond of the young man, offered an answer laced with meaning. Success depends on many things, but the most important is, don't be a follower. Don't chase the crowd. Be the leader of the leading industry. That was it. Be a pioneer, a leader who guides others to success. Hearing those words, something inside Red clicked. Then he asked, "If I finished the work earlier than scheduled, would that save you money?" The farm owner laughed and admitted it would. "Then, could I have a share of that saved money? I can finish the fence by tomorrow." Impressed by his courage, the farm owner smiled, but warned, "That's impossible." Still, Red stood tall with confidence and walked away. The next morning, the workers were awakened by the sound of the morning bell. But Gus noticed something strange. Red was missing. When they arrived at the site, they finally found him. From Gus's words, they discovered that Red had started working at 3 a.m. The other workers couldn't understand why he'd do such a thing. But Red explained, "The farm owner pays by the amount of work completed, so why not finish early?" Then he shared the work plan he had spent the entire night developing. He proposed a 3-person system. One person would dig and measure the holes, another would chop and prepare the wood, and the third would handle installation and follow-up tasks. This assembly line style method drastically improved efficiency. Seeing this, even the farm owner couldn't help but smile in satisfaction. As the evening breeze brushed against their cheeks and the sunset lit up the horizon, they had done what no one thought possible. In the end, Red truly deserved the bonus he earned through his intelligence. He had finally made the first real money of his life. With joy, he went to the post office and sent $20 back home. However, just as he was about to leave, his attention was unexpectedly caught by a golden belt on display. Curious, he approached the man wearing it and asked about the secret to his success. He also mentioned that he planned to go to California to seek better opportunities. But the man replied that one didn't need to go all the way to California to make money. "Beneath the grasslands of Texas," he said with a mysterious smile, "there lies an endless supply of soft gold." Red, sharp as ever, immediately thought of oil. Yet the man simply smiled and walked away without confirming anything. This only made Red more certain of the direction he should take in life. Still, at that moment, he knew nothing about oil. While lost in thought, something else caught his eye, a beautiful girl walking down the street. She approached him with confidence and friendliness, but Red, suddenly shy, could only stammer awkwardly. Luckily, the girl didn't mind at all. In fact, she invited him to the school dance that evening. Blushing, Red nodded and accepted the invitation.
He didn't see.
That night, he gathered his courage to go talk to her. But just as he was about to speak, Gus suddenly appeared and interrupted him. Despite the interruption, it was clear the girl, Anna, had taken a liking to Red. But what she didn't expect was the first thing to come out of Red's mouth, a proposal. "I want to marry you." If love were a chess game, Red had just thrown himself into checkmate, bold and unfiltered. Wanting to see her more, Red waited at the school gate every day for Anna after class. But this sweet gesture drew the attention of a local rich boy who had secretly admired Anna for some time. The boy mocked Red openly, calling him nothing more than a lucky country bumpkin. Anna, annoyed, told him off and sent him away. However, she also gently told Red that her father would never allow her to be with a man who had no education. Wanting to help him, Anna brought Red to the principal's office and asked if he could be allowed to take the entrance exam for school. But before the principal could say anything, Red firmly refused. He believed school was a waste of time. He was convinced he could self-learn everything on his own, and if he wanted, he could easily pass any college exam. He even listed many successful people who had never gone to college. The principal looked at this confident teenager and was about to speak when Red challenged Anna to give him a 5-digit multiplication problem. She did, and in just 1 second, he gave the correct answer. Anna double-checked and was astonished to find he was right. But Red didn't stop there. He noticed the principal's hands were wet and immediately deduced that he had just watered the rubber fig tree outside, known for releasing sap when touched. What shocked the principal even more was when Red calculated his annual income, $1,700, based on the average local salary and the principal's position. "I'm sorry, sir," Red said, standing up, "but I'm not satisfied with that kind of money in this town." With that, he walked out of the office. Anna was clearly upset with his behavior. "Why are you always so competitive?" she asked. "It's like you're afraid of something." Without waiting for an answer, she turned and walked away. But the next morning, as class began, the teacher made an announcement. There was a new student in class. Anna turned around, and to her surprise and joy, saw that it was Red. That day marked a turning point. The two grew closer than ever. The more time they spent together, the deeper their feelings became. But just as everything was going well, the radio suddenly brought devastating news. Japan had attacked Pearl Harbor. In response, the President of the United States declared war on Japan. America was officially entering World War II. As a passionate young man, Red didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was, but that didn't stop his patriotic fire from burning. Without hesitation, he enlisted in the army. However, when Anna found out, she was furious. The two got into a heated argument. Their love boat hit its first crashing wave. "I won't wait for you, do you hear me?" she snapped. "Fine," Red replied. "There are plenty of guys chasing after you anyway. Go with whoever you want, I don't care. Keep your ring." "Fine," she shot back. "I hope you live well and marry someone better. I don't need a woman like you, Anna," Red said coldly. Then, his voice softened. "I'm sorry, Anna. I love you. I'll wait for you." Pain is never easy to forget. But sometimes all it takes is one promise to wash away the bitterness. Still, war turned out to be far crueler than Red had imagined. During one mission, while delivering mail to the front lines, a shell explosion threw him through the air. Miraculously, a fellow soldier risked his life to pull Red back to the trench. And that soldier turned out to be none other than Gus, his old friend from the farm. Fortunately, Red's injuries weren't serious, and the war didn't last too long. As the storms of war passed and time carried the years away, a decade swept the youthfulness from Red's face. He returned to a peaceful life. By now, Red had been married to Anna for several years, and they had children of their own. But he never forgot his dream. He used the savings from his military service to buy a piece of land, determined to reignite his dream of striking oil. But reality often mocks ambition. Years passed, and Red's well produced nothing but mud and sand. No sign of oil anywhere. His anxiety grew by the day. "I've seen so many others strike oil over the years," he muttered. "It's got to be my turn now. I know there's oil down there. We still have 35 feet to dig. I hope none of you are thinking about lunch yet," he told the workers. Frustrated and exhausted, the workers finally had enough, and they quit on the spot. Red returned home utterly defeated. For 3 years, he had poured every cent into this dream. If oil wasn't found soon, his family would have nothing left to live on. Thankfully, no matter how hard life became, Anna never left his side. But she did wish Red would spend more time with their children. After all, being a father was also a responsibility. One day, Red noticed his son playing baseball alone in the yard. The sight hit him hard. He realized just how absent he had been. For the first time, he stepped out onto the field to play catch with his son. "Dad, can you teach me how to throw a curveball?" Red tried, but he had no idea how. He wasn't even interested. There's probably someone out there who does know how to throw one. What are they called again? That innocent question from his son awakened something in Red. Maybe some things should be left to the experts. The very next day, Red spent a large sum of money to hire a professional oil surveyor. The expert used advanced measuring tools and pointed precisely to a spot on the land. Red was skeptical, but he had no other options left. Fate, however, has a strange way of rewarding those who never give up. The seeds of hope planted years ago were finally ready to bloom. Red shared the exciting news with his family, and of course, with Gus, his closest friend and lifelong rival. Over the years, they had always competed, but also grown into the most important people in each other's lives. In just one day, their well produced 500 barrels of crude oil. Each barrel sold for $2, and the reserves beneath the land were enough to last decades. Though Red's dream of becoming a billionaire was still far off, this strike was enough to ensure a prosperous life for his family. But the massive profits didn't go unnoticed, especially by the previous owner of the land. So, once again, jealous of Red's success, the previous landowner filed a lawsuit against him, claiming their transaction only included the land itself, not the mineral rights beneath it. This blatant betrayal enraged Red. From his experience in the oil business, Red understood the value of expertise. So he spared no expense in hiring the top graduate of the law school, a talented black attorney named Harward. However, on the day of the trial, everyone in court was shocked to discover that Harward was black. At that time, such a thing was practically unheard of. Most people believed Red had already lost the case just by choosing him. The opposing lawyer mocked Harward relentlessly, but Harward stood firm, completely unfazed. He calmly turned to Red and asked, "How fast do you want this case resolved?" "As fast as possible," Red replied. Harward simply smiled and began his performance. "I've reviewed the local records and discovered that my client purchased both the land and its mineral rights through a land exchange agreement 2 years ago. The contract was signed 2 years and 2 months ago. Under Texas law, the maximum statute of limitations to dispute mineral rights is 24 months. He leaned in. "Don't tell me you didn't know that." "What? How could this be?" "I told you," the opposing lawyer muttered in defeat. "I'm just a divorce attorney." With Harward's precision and legal mastery, the opposing side crumbled and fled the courtroom. After just one round in court, Red was blown away by Harward's brilliance. Right then and there, he offered him a generous salary to become the chief legal advisor for his oil company. With Harward's protection, Red's oil business flourished over the next 10 years. He bought more wells, expanded rapidly, and built his own oil empire, amassing a fortune that exceeded $10 million. However, Red had become so absorbed in his work that he was barely involved in raising his children. As a result, they grew up only knowing how to ask for money, completely unprepared for real life. What bothered Red even more was the market itself. As more oil fields were discovered, the market became saturated, and crude oil prices began to drop due to oversupply. Even though he was already extremely wealthy, Red still felt far from his dream of becoming a billionaire. He remembered the words of the old farm owner, "Always stay ahead of the times." After careful consideration, Red decided to expand into oil refining and build his own supply chain. He set his sights on a struggling refinery, teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, and went with Harward to negotiate the acquisition. But after years of success, Red's attitude had changed. He had grown arrogant. Only a few minutes into the meeting, the opposing side was already irritated by Red's condescending tone. They deliberately delayed the deal, telling him to go home and wait. This was the first real obstacle Red had faced in years. With no other choice, Red and Harward returned to their hotel. They waited and waited. 2 weeks passed with no response. Christmas was the next day, and Harward could no longer stand it. Ignoring Red's objections, he decided to return home and spend the holiday with his family. Red had no choice but to let him go. The refinery deal was far too important. He couldn't afford to walk away. But in the end, the wait was worth it. Early on Christmas morning, the refinery owner came to meet Red personally. As it turned out, he had signed the transfer contract long ago, but had delayed delivering it until now to test Red's sincerity. Not long after, Red's oil empire became the talk of the media. He had finally achieved the dream he'd had since he was young, becoming a billionaire. But when he looked around, he realized there was no one by his side to share this moment with. Then came devastating news. Harward, his closest friend, had been in a car accident on the way home. Both of his kidneys had ruptured. He was now only alive thanks to dialysis. But dialysis could only sustain him temporarily. His only hope was a kidney transplant. Donating just one kidney could save his life. As Red stood by his friend's hospital bed, watching him fade, he was overwhelmed with emotion. In his mind echoed the words of the kind black man he had met on that fateful train ride long ago. "Be grateful for the gifts life gives you and the lessons time teaches us." Red, a man who had never believed in destiny, now found himself praying for Harward to survive. And then, by chance, he saw something in the medical file. Harvard's blood type was identical to his own. Without hesitation, Red made a bold and irreversible decision. A few days later, in the hospital's recovery room, both Red and Harvard slowly opened their eyes. Red had donated one of his kidneys to save his best friend's life. When Harvard regained consciousness, he asked, "So, how does it feel to be a billionaire?" Red smiled faintly. "Honestly, not that special. The world keeps spinning, and there's no one around to celebrate it with." Harvard looked at him quietly. "But you kept your promise." Red nodded. "Yes, but I lost things that mattered more to me." Through this life and death moment, Red finally understood the true meaning of life. After leaving the hospital, he immediately called a family meeting. He announced his decision. He would use his entire fortune to start a charitable foundation to help those in need. He gave each of his children $100,000, hoping they would use it to do good for others. But the moment they received the money, they forgot everything Red had said. They rushed out into the world, seduced by its temptations. Red had braced himself for this outcome, but the disappointment still cut deep. Just then, his youngest son quietly returned and handed the money back to Red. "This is my way of supporting your foundation, Dad," he said, "and I want to help you with your charity work." That simple act meant more to Red than all the oil in Texas. This film is based on the true story of John Davidson Rockefeller, co-founder of Standard Oil, the world's largest oil company, now known as ExxonMobil. He was America's first billionaire, forever known as the Oil King. His path to success was filled with hardship and sacrifice. And when the spotlight fades and the dream begins to dissolve like mist, it is only after countless highs and lows that we finally realize chasing money and fame is a road many of us will walk, but never lose sight of what truly matters. Because family is the greatest treasure of all. That's the end of today's story. Thank you for watching. What did you think of this film? Leave a comment below.